Let's bring in Warren Hogan, the economic advisor with Judo Bank, for more on this. Let's start on the Reserve Bank governor. We're at that stage, aren't we? Because we're not far away from knowing, and it's. I don't think we've had a time I can recall where his job, his performance has been so scrutinised. Will he go? Should he go? And who might replace him?
Yeah, hi Tom. Thanks for having me on the show. I think, as Angus Taylor noted, there were some pretty big missteps, and there has to be accountability. So there is a strong case for his term not to be extended. But the question then becomes, who is the right person? And I think in normal times, there are a number of people, and quite a few people who could do the job. But right now, we're in the eye of the storm. This is what central bankers train their whole career. All their experience is required right now. So to bring someone in from the outside, when we're trying to get this economy back onto a even keel, as the current government calls it, without raising rates that'll push us into recession, is an extraordinarily difficult challenge. So the first question becomes, who would want the job? Because we can see the pressures. But I think there's only one person who could match Philip Lowe in terms of being able to do the job and have the experience, and that's Guy Debelle, the former deputy governor. Anyone else would be a risky proposition, in my view. And I think considerations about implementing the RBA review, that is the bigger picture issues, I think it's risky to make that the priority. I think they need to focus on who's going to get the job done in the next 2 years, particularly the next 12 months.
If that's the case, then, because the review is important in noting, and there's been endless commentary on, this culture of insularism, if I can call it that, within the Reserve Bank. A lot of lifers there. How much pushback is there? If they do go down the path you suggested, maybe it's a rare 12-month appointment, and if he's seen to do a great job, he can get that extension. If not, they can then prioritise the review, a new sort of culture, a new way of thinking. Is that a tenable option?
Look, I think we need to be extraordinarily pragmatic. We're not doing the normal transition of power that occurs, to use the phrase. I mean, it's all very orderly in normal times. This is quite an unusual time where the existing governor wants an extension, but the government's not clearly sort of giving the nod for that. And as I said, the timing right now, I mean, there is just as much chance that our cash rate has to go up to 5.5% as that we're going to see one more rate hike and done as the market expects. And of course, this is the critical time. So I think there's a case to be made for exactly that. Give him another year, make the focus now to get the situation under control, and then have a look at the big picture once we're past the eye of the storm.
It's there'll be people with a mortgage out there that might have just spat out their tea, Warren Hogan, or maybe they're reaching for something stronger when you talk about 5.5%. If you look at the last RBA statement, that there is, I thought, the strongest indication yet. It's a genuine pause, and they'll see how things turn out. Why do you think we could be headed north of 5%?
Yeah, look, it's the prominent risk. I'm still sticking with a sort of a 435 or 460 peak in the next few months. That is one or two more. But the reality is the economy is proving extraordinarily resilient. And the bottom line is our real interest rates are still deeply negative. That is, inflation is still well above the interest rate. And there is no historical example of any economy getting inflation under control with negative real interest rates. And you can see what that's resulted in overseas. That is US interest rates at 5.25%, UK interest rates at 5%, New Zealand at 5.5%. So, Phil Lowe has been the most dovish central banker in the world. And if any other central banker from these other similar economies was in Martin Place at the RBA, would have a cash rate above 5 right now. He is doing everything he can to not raise rates more than he has to. He's taking a lot of risk, because if he lets the economy get away, then we're going to have a real problem. So, Australia's in a bit of a bubble on this. And unfortunately, that risk is not going away, given those strong employment numbers we just saw. And of course, the way the housing market's picking up again is just completely inconsistent with an economy that's slowing down and inflation coming off.
Well, then you've got that factor of migration, which seems to be affecting that. I guess the balancing act, it strikes me there may be 4 cohorts. You've got wealthier retirees, they own their own home. The interest rate rises don't worry them. They're getting more return on their cash rates and they're spending up. There are people who bought homes maybe 10 years ago or longer at rates similar to now. They've got smaller loans. They're not too worried either. It's hitting them at the margins. Then you've got people with fixed rate loans who are sort of in the brace position, but it hasn't hit them just yet. And then the people that took out loans at the peak during COVID at point one that are getting absolutely smashed. So not only is he having to balance how hurt or otherwise those different cohorts are getting, he's also trying to figure out their sort of spending habits and how to bring them into the line while not, you don't want to completely smash that last cohort if you can avoid it.
Yeah, well, look, and I think that's a fair enough summary of the situation. But the reality is the RBA's got to get the interest rate to the right level for the whole economy. And if we want to worry about individual cohorts, that's more of a role for government. And also we should look back on the environment that created those problems in the first place, i.e. should we have had rates so low? But the more to the point is the RBA can't, well, I mean, the reality is if they don't do what they have to do, then the situation will just get worse. So you can't worry about the stress that's going to be brought into the economy at the RBA. That's the role of government to look after those individuals. Or in the case of, say, people with debt and problems, that's the banks also have a role. So the RBA's got to do what it's got to do. And if there is an alternative to a 4.1% cash rate in Australia, it's a 5.1, not a 3.1. There's many commentators out there who have, really off the planet on the way they're describing the situation, and they're dangerous because they'll just get us into more trouble.
Warren Hogan, appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.